I am Nesmuversitan. And there is the question of, is there anything worth fighting for, as far as Virgilius is concerned? Well, hopefully that will be answered quite soon. When we last left off on this story, Virgilius, the Red Gaze, met up with Garnet, a rookie fixer, and one of those who was raised in the orphanage that was destroyed by Iori, the Purple Tear, along with a girl called Lapis. At a restaurant, he and his fixers was consuming much food and alcohol, where the braid and bob cuts bearing woman, who was revealed to be called Rikoko, and the short messy-haired man, who was revealed to be called Nansul, try to brighten Virgilius's mood, along with the light-haired man and the ponytail-bearing woman, and failing miserably, due to Garnet's visits, resulting in PTSD flashbacks of the attack on the orphanage. Later on that day, Garnet called Virgilius from a payphone in the back streets of District 22 to inform him of a gathering of ring thugs. Yes, that's one of the fingers. In a place where he and Lapis agreed to meet up. One of those who was gathering in that location included a Maestro of the ring, based on the 3-chord ring on her finger. He asked the colour fixer what to do next. Yes, that is something I want to know. Virgilius asked what gave him the impression that the ring was gathering there for some ill purpose, obviously wanting to learn more before making his decision. Garnet, still in the phone booth, which was laden with graffiti in one or two places and had partially fractured glass, as if we needed more indication that the neighbourhood he was in was rough. Well, it was the back streets of District 22. Could be worse. It could have been the Nest. We know what happened there, don't we? Garnet then told him that something was off about that building, that it looks more like a school. Virgilius theorized that Lapis might have decided to pursue higher education. Virgilius! It's hard enough to pass the requirements of the wing entrance exams that you can get from an examinee town, and harder still to keep the wings satisfied once you get in. Higher education for the majority of the back streets is about as likely as finding decent firearms to turn people into red paint with, outside of the rabbit team. Hail the rabbits! Team. So we can safely eliminate that possibility, Virgilius. It's unclear where you come from, though. You could have been from the back streets and moved to the Nest as easily as you could have been from the Nest to begin with. As for what Lapis was employed by, and no, it's not stated what she was employed for. Apparently, she got a job at a fruit harvesting company, but it turned out to be a front company for the ring, as there was no orchard, and the only fruits that Garnet found in that building was in some crates, and they were about as rotten as the ring thugs themselves. As for what the thugs were doing in that place, it was weird as the syndicate members looked like they were in classrooms, where at first glance it looked like a school. But as far as Garnet was aware, students didn't usually carry weapons. Although for all he knew, in some schools it might be different. Clearly he hasn't heard of Battle Royale. No, not the game mode in some games. I'm talking about the piece of Japanese fiction that term derived from, where it involved a bunch of Japanese schoolchildren being dumped on an island and told that they are to fight to the death until only one remained. And if more than one was still alive, after 3 days, they'd all die. Okay, getting off topic. Virgilius asked where Garnet was at that point. Garnet paused and then told him that he ran away from there. Yes, he ran away faster than it takes for an SJW to be triggered by a subject that isn't clearly black and white. He apologized to Virgilius, who reassured him that he made the wise move. Yeah, he's giving the rookie fixer guidance, telling him to know when to stay out of battles that he knows that he can't win. And in this case, he definitely can't, as it's too dangerous for a rookie fixer armed with a chain whip type weapon, and likely minimal augmentations, if he has augmentations at all. Knowing when to stay out of that kind of business, a valuable skill it is. Yeah, I know. That's how I'm seeing Virgilius at that point. If you don't know the reference, it's in most of the Star Wars movies before the Disney Empire took over. Garnet asked him what to do, asking if something bad happened to Lapis. Virgilius was silent, clearly not knowing what to say. But Garnet made his decision to help her, hoping that she was all right. But he understood that the Zwei Association wouldn't come right away, even if he appealed to them. And that's assuming that the area that he was in was under their protection, their private security, or rent-a-cops. They don't work for free, and Garnet knew that. Which was likely why he was desperate, and called Virgilius. He paused before asking the colour fixer for his help. Virgilius told him that there was nothing that he could do to help. Clearly still traumatized by his defeat at the hands of the Purple Tear and the destruction of the orphanage. Garnet pleaded to him, unsure what to do on his own. Virgilius didn't move from his position, telling Garnet to head back home for now, as they'll talk more the next day. Which wasn't an outright refusal, so Garnet had some hope. Who asked Virgilius if he could count on him to call back. Virgilius made no promises. Garnet awaited his call, thanking him. And before he hung up, Garnet revealed that the destruction of the orphanage and the fight with Iori, the Purple Tear, was half a year before this. And that he wasn't much help with that fight, as he wasn't a fixer at the time. That, and he'd be carved up quicker than a giant salmon after a huge family sashimi order in a sushi restaurant. If he was suicidal enough to try and fight a colour fixer of her ability. But he believed that in this occasion, it'll be different. Well, considering that you now have a weapon, it will be different. It's just unclear how much, as you haven't really fought yet. Well, we'll see how you do soon enough. Now that he was alone in his thoughts after that call ended, the internal emotional pain was still there, but it wasn't externally obvious. From one of his inside jacket pockets, he then took out a worn photograph of him and a number of orphans, along with the staff of the orphanage, when the orphanage was still around. The orphans were of varied ages, and one of them appeared to have a cybernetic eye replacement, so they clearly had enough to provide for the orphans. Yeah. Garnet was to his right, and Lapis was to his left. Virgilius understood Garnet, seeing him as just as impatient as he was 10 years before. So Garnet and Lapis, they were in the orphanage around the time that the Seed of Light project was at the Cycle of Samsara stage, a cycle that not even Aeon, the architect of, was exempt from. The next day, Garnet was at the perimeter fence of the building where the ring was operating. He was surprised by someone approaching. He was glad that it was Virgilius, who was moving towards the area as if he was a certain human-demon hybrid who was just about to kick some. All he was missing was a laid-back attitude, which of course Virgilius didn't have. Garnet thanked him for coming. Virgilius told him to save the greetings and asked him if that was the place. Garnet confirmed this. He didn't get far in. Well, he certainly got far enough inside to find out some of what was going on. The thugs, the crates of rotten fruit, and the Maestro of the ring. Virgilius noted the figures resembling works of art. Garnet wasn't experienced, but even he could tell something was up. Virgilius told him to wait there, while he dealt with what was inside. But Garnet objected to this, and he asked him if he could help him with that, not letting the red gaze go in there alone. Apparently, he didn't raise Garnet to be a coward, even though Virgilius told him that he didn't raise him in general. The thought of running away, at least before he informed Virgilius of what he found there. It angered this green fixer. He was practicing with his weapon, wanting the combat veteran to have faith in him, promising not to be dead weight at least. Virgilius briefly thought about this. It was clear that Garnet wanted to prove himself to one that he looked up to. And so he told Garnet that he'll leave him to deal with his own share of it. Garnet silently understood this to mean stick close, kill what you can, but don't punch above your weight. And was attentive to this more experienced fixer and followed him as he and Virgilius infiltrated the compound, either using a hole in the wire fence or, now this is believable, at least with the red gaze, making one for them to use, while attracting as little attention from the guards as possible. Yeah, that sounds more like the Seven Association way of doing things. Certainly not as combat-focused as other colour fixers, although he's no assassin either. They then found themselves in a corridor full of animal-headed statues, or at least those that looks like statues. They then peeked into a room that looked like a classroom, an art classroom, like they're giving lessons. Virgilius wasn't surprised by this, as the ring only trusts what they see. He silently suspects that they might be too late to save Lapis, but he didn't tell Garnet this, as the situation was grave enough as it was, without that being out in the open. As for what Garnet thinks, it was weird as, for a school, it's missing students. Virgilius corrected him that it wasn't an ordinary school. It was an art gallery hosted by the Ring. He then thought that docents should be lurking around, and for those who are unfamiliar with that term, that is either a teacher/lecturer or a tour guide of an art gallery. Garnet asked if Lapis was involved with them. Virgilius thought that this was most likely to be the case, silently expecting the worst. This wasn't the first time that he's seen this happen. Won't be the last either. Garnet was still hopeful that they'd find her there, and she'd be fine. Does he not know how up and grimdark this world is? Otherwise he'd wait until they found her before he said that. Either that, or he did know and he's got desensitized to everything early. Then Virgilius grabbed Garnet, as some smartly dressed thugs was nearby. Garnet asked what they were up to, and if tailing them might lead to something useful. Virgilius clearly knew more about the situation, as he told the inexperienced fixer that they can ask the one spying on them for directions. Yeah, I'm definitely getting a Batman and Robin vibe from this. And guess which one is the Batman type and which one is the Robin type. Also, what did Virgilius turn towards? It was the animal-headed statues, which weren't statues at all. They were mime artists. They were doing some kind of performance art, the kind you'd find on the streets in the nicer parts of London, at least before a certain disease made going outside without some form of protection unsafe. Virgilius told him that they should get this over quickly. As they were, well, pretty much busted. These weren't normal exhibits, as they were armed. Garnet showed one of them his fixer license and demanded this gender-ambiguous exhibit to give them cooperation, regardless of what their business was. This exhibit could only go, "Oh." Then he noticed the thugs had been alerted to their presence. The exhibit going, I think they were saying, "Intruder!" and then, "You shall suffer, trespasser!" I say this as the exhibit was coming for Garnet with their weapon. And it's clear that this will involve violence. Garnet was unsure what he did wrong, asking Virgilius if he it up. Virgilius taught him here that against the enemy, less talk is usually better, as he drew his sword, telling Garnet to ready his weapon, which Garnet attempted to do so, only to find that it was stuck, which was mildly annoying to Virgilius, and certainly embarrassing to Garnet. But Virgilius chose not to express this with words, as it wouldn't help here. When Garnet was able to draw his own chain whip sword, he fought the exhibit, and after a short battle, Garnet found an opening and thrust his chain whip sword into his opponent. He had made his first kill! Then he turned his attention to Virgilius, who had made short work of the ring thugs. Then they found themselves in the company of one with ornate swords in each hand, wearing a suit that was partially exposed around the chest area. And before you say anything, the gender of this individual was unclear, so I won't bother with that, at least for now. Although they wore a mask that would be what the Phantom of the Opera would wear if that story was set in New Orleans, Louisiana, during Mardi Gras. Yeah, it appeared that colourful and outlandish. And they thought that the two fixers were hilarious. Would he kill them to kill or what? In fact, the most irritated that they were was with the exhibits, as they weren't ordered to move, asking if they were afraid of being scolded. Well, this higher-ranked individual of the ring knew that they were getting off scot-free. And that's where it ends for now. It's clear that the Ring are an artistically themed syndicate that only trusts what they see, where the higher the rank, the more stylish or outrageous they're expected to look. Where if you have any artistic ability, this is the syndicate for you, if you want to be on the other side of the law, at least. But if you have no artistic ability, you'd best look into one of the other syndicates, as there's nothing for you here. As for the mime artists, why can't they speak? Is it because they don't have their tongues? And no, not for the same reason why the thumb removed them. Were they gagged? Or were they lobotomized in such a way that they couldn't speak, but still retained their capacity to think? That last one is not only possible, considering the technology available, but deeply disturbing. And that's considering how grimdark this world is, based on what we know so far. Virgilius seemed to want to at least find out what happened to Lapis and also see if he can make sure that Garnet and Lapis, if she's still alive, can get out of there alive, while teaching him more specific things to increase his survival chances. As for how this encounter with the docent will go, we'll have to wait for Book 4 to find out. Now, if the musicians of Bremen weren't completely outside reality, which was due to the pianist's attack not killing them, but up their heads, they'd likely be affiliated with the Ring due to their artistic leanings. Unless, of course, the Ring focuses more on visual art. In that case, leave them to it. Leave them to play Scarborough Fair with the tendons of any unfortunate cross paths with them. Unless they get in the way of the Ring, of course. It's more likely that the Blade lineage and the Rusted Chains are affiliated with the possibly masochistic Pinky, much as the hierarchy and etiquette-obsessed Thumb have syndicates that have a similar adherence to those two concepts as they do, as subsidiaries. It's clear that Garnet is on his first request by how he behaved, and he behaved in a way that he did because, well, he doesn't know any better. He's at least made his first kill, but will it be his last? I'm actually looking forward to how this is going to progress. Well, it's certainly left us at a cliffhanger, hasn't it? Until next time. Hail the rabbit!